Brian, thank you for driving up this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And towing your new boat. It's an amazing
thank you.
Vessel for skinny water.
Right.
You know, so most companies build boats, skiff boats that work for most all type of fishing scenarios. Some boats go more shallow than others, or shallower, I should say. Mm-hmm. But depending on what you like to fish or where you like to fish, it's hard to find that one boat that's good for all conditions and all locations. So why did you think that it was important for you to design your own boat? You couldn't find one that was out there available that could do what you needed to do?
There are lots of boat options out there, as you're aware of, but I just wanted a boat that complemented my style of fishing. Like, I'm all over South Florida day to day, and I like to do a lot of weird stuff, kind of like skiing out of bounds or go off script, not just pull snake bite or something, but really get out there and dig around and get lost and try to find something. So like this boat, for instance, the other day I pulled 5 miles in the no motor zone and bounced out and caught 2 big tarpon. So it's very versatile. It's got open water ability, extremely light. And one of the things we did is we pulled the transom a little narrower than midships by 10 inches, and it gives the boat tons of glide. So if you want to really cover ground and a lot of ground in a day, it's got lots of glide and pulls very easily.
So when you have a narrower transom area in the back part of the boat, is that more narrow than the middle part of the boat?
Yeah, the breast or the midships is the widest spot.
Right.
It's like pinching a watermelon seed forward. You got all that water pressure closing in behind you, and it's just shooting you forward. Okay. And it relaxes the water coming off the corners. If you look at the turbulence coming off the back of the boat, it's almost none. There's just, it's just like a canoe or a rowboat or any kind of Armstrong, I'd call them, vessel. Over time, it all have that shape.
It's interesting because it looked pretty damn flat too. You know, if you look at the back end of the boat, the transom from that view, it's dead straight, dead flat.
It is. It doesn't need a shape to it because it's already relaxing as it comes back. It doesn't need rounded corners. That would just take away from hull volume and planing characteristics at that point. The bottom of the boat's got a little dead rise, just enough to make the bottom strong. Also give a little shape. That crown, that dead rise gives you like a little concave or convex, which gives it strength, and also softens the ride. And try to have no straight lines in the boat because straight lines flex more and they're weak. Anything with a radius is stronger.
Mm-hmm. Who taught you how to build boats?
Man, I'm kind of self-taught. I just started messing around with stuff and built a boat one time with a guy from Merritt Boatyard. Just taught me a lot about how to use the materials. I just started drawing things up and making canoes and one-off boats for myself and sort of went from there.
Didn't that stem from making surfboards as a kid?
I didn't make surfboards. I surfed a lot. And I was around a lot of surfboard makers, but I never made them myself. But it's a lot like shaping a surfboard, especially with these foam boats. You can get in there and shape the original plug by hand with a power planer, just like a surfboard.
Interesting.
The rails and stuff, to get compound curves and stuff.
And you had your own boat business before your guiding career, correct?
Yeah, I was a minority partner. We called it Gladescraft back then too. It was spelled different, but it was a whole different business entity. But I was a minority partner in that. I was just hired talent at first to make a new boat to match a deck plug they already had made. And as we got into it, I just was like, instead of paying me by the hour to do this stuff, let me just be part of the company. But then the big recession hit and I just had to get back to work. So I just sort of bailed out of the thing and he kept going with it. But yeah, I did. And I've built one-off boats since then over time.
So were these early boats designed to be on the bow of big boats?
Not really. I mean, I guess you could put any skiff on the bow of a big boat, but you talking about the original Gladescraft?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little higher sided, little harder chine boat, like a Maverick HPX more, but flat in the back. I had the built out spray rails, how a lot of boats have these days. It was all Kevlar back then, which didn't make sense because it's not the best thing to make a boat out of. But, glass or carbon is a much better thing. But that's what we did back then. And 17 and a half feet long.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to a podcast you did with Hunter Levine, and you were talking about these big production, commercial skiffs, how they have to make them heavier and more durable, and that's obviously comes with a heavier weighted boat. But when you make it yourself, you can cut a lot of corners, correct, and make that boat really
you can cheat where you can because I'm not going to give myself bad press if it breaks or charge myself to fix it. I can just fix it. So from like an engineering standpoint, just make it lighter till it breaks. And, if you're running one that hasn't broke yet, make it lighter, find that sweet spot,
Then how do you deal with warranty issues?
Well, for this boat, I'm working with a laminator, and we've made tons of boats together, and he's made lots of boats. So our boat's very strong. It's foam cored, like very thick foam core. So, we shouldn't have any problem with, lamination, but, things come up, but, we're going to have a 10-year, pretty much industry standard, hull warranty for original owners.
10 year.
It
looks like a sliver, your boat.
It's a blade, man. It's like Kelly Slater's surfboard or Tiger Woods clubs or your skis. It's like, it's in the right hands. It's a good tool.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the biggest motor you could put on your boat?
It's rated for a 40. With a 30, it goes 30 miles an hour. With a 40, it'll probably go 35 or 6.
Wow.
That's fast.
That keeps it very light.
That's fast.
Yeah.
Because there's not much material to push. So of course it's going to be fast.
Does anybody look at want one of your boats and they say, shit, there's no side console or there's no console?
We have a side console mold.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. So we've got that option.
Very cool.
Sure.
Do most boat manufacturing companies lie about the weight?
I think everybody, to a point. I know that Tom Gordon just came out with a boat, and he's not lying about it. I know that for sure. It's a nice little boat too. Yeah, but we're not using carbon. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors about carbon. It's great, but I think it's better for components. Where there's no foam core involved. As soon as you get thick foam core, things stiffen up, and it almost takes the carbon out of the equation. And it's hard to fix, and it also rots all your electrical stuff and through holes and all that. So it's awesome, but it's not all it's cracked up to be. So we're trying not to spend all of our profit fixing boats down the road.
So what boat did you run before you decided to build your own boat?
I've got a Hell's Bay Biscayne. That's great for all the tarpon fishing I do and all that stuff. I've had that since 2012. I'm going to still hang on to that. I always had one-off little, smaller skiffs that I made for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I have John boats in the past for my shallow boat.
Didn't you have a spear at one point?
I had a spear. Yeah, that's a phenomenal boat. Yeah, very good hull shape. But it kind of inspired me to make this boat. So they're very similar.
What do you think of our boat, the Chittum?
Your boat's awesome. I mean, it's revolutionized skiffs.
Yeah, I mean, our boat, you can do everything with it. You can catch tarpon and go really in shallow, skinny water.
Yeah.
But I think that you're looking for a boat that goes into the no motor zone where you can remove your motor and still have access and versatility, right?
But yeah, when I come out of there, it still has open water capabilities. Like we can cross bays and channels and, stay dry and comfortable and have range, because I've been running that thing, 80 miles a day, some days both way, round trip, even with a 30 horse up above Tarpon Bay and, way down past Lospins and stuff. So it gets around, it covers some water.
Mm-hmm. Well, how expensive is your boat?
It's going to be base models right around mid 30s. They could go out the door like mid 40, all tricked out, but it's still a lot less than a lot of stuff these days.
So I find it interesting in with your life in general, in that you're so busy as a guide because your mind is, you still love to fish, but you're a boat builder too.
Yeah, I was trying to break the mold and not be limited by my own two hands, especially getting a little older. I wanted maybe another income stream. Hopefully it's not a drain. I just wanted to try it one more time, man. I just had the itch.
Mm-hmm. But when you're out there fishing, are you thinking about your boat designs, or are you thinking about where am I going to go next?
Well, think about everything, man. We can multitask these days. Right? I don't know about Nikki, but we can.
But what about like does boat design and the Glades Craft Company comes a higher priority than guiding, or vice versa?
No, nothing takes precedence over something else. Just there's time for everything. A lot of times, I'm subbing everything out. So I've got a laminator that does that part, and he's very experienced, and I've been working with him for 25 years. And then I've got a rigger that came from another big boat company. He was there for 8 years. Shane Casey, he's as good as it gets. So he's a
great.
rigger.
I love Shane.
So fortunate to have him. So I don't have my own overhead and facility and employees, but I sub everything out. So that takes a lot of financial stress off me, and just kind of pay to play. We get an order, they charge what they charge, I charge what I charge, and hopefully it all works.
You just move the boat from garage to garage.
Yeah, it's just they're in the same warehouse complex right across from each other, so it couldn't work out better.
Mm-hmm. Good for you.
Up there in Stewart.
Are you taking less guiding trip days because of this new business?
No, but I think people think that because I'm a little slow. But I think what's happened is a lot of my clients have all gotten old at the same time, so I got to do a little rebuilding. But that happens to everybody. I've seen it happen to everybody. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the curse of the established guide. Like you're so busy for so long, you don't really take on new people, and people aren't feeding you people. You always want to give the overflow to the new guy because you know it's a one phone call thing and you don't have to keep messing with it when you're busy. But so I'm a little bit of rebuilding process, but no, I'm still very much fishing full time.
Mm-hmm. So you're very loyal to your old time customers. You're never going to swap someone out for a 20-year-old young gun. Yeah,
but I mean, I needed, there's time for everybody, basically.
Yeah, let's go back a little bit. We'll come back to the fishing.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
Deerfield Beach, Florida.
Deerfield Beach. When did you start seeing these fish? Wherever you're, the snook, right? I think snook was your first passion.
Yeah, the bridge a block away from my house off the Intercoastal. My mom would drop me off with a bucket of shrimp and 6 dozen shrimp. I'd buy at Deerfield Pier, and she'd drop me off, and every one of those shrimp would get eaten by a snapper, a snook, a sheepshead, a pufferfish, something. I mean, every single shrimp under this little bridge.
Now, who put a fishing rod in your hand?
Probably my father for sure.
He was a big fisherman or so-so?
He was, he was a recreational angler. He never fly fished, but he loved to bass fish and do some saltwater stuff. But I kind of got the saltwater bug. I love the bass fish as well, but just growing up with my dad and around his buddies, they'd take me fishing.
And you were saying that you used to hang out with Tommy Green in his shop.
Yeah, a little bit. He was larger than life. I loved catching snook, and he was the biggest snook head around, and all the big snook on the walls and all the stories. And he's got a way with words, and he can tell a good story. So,
yeah, he can tell a great story,
pretty
right?
Captivated.
Yeah. He tells stories. My dad and I walk out of his shop, and we go, "What do you think? Do you think that was real?"
Yeah.
Think that actually happened?
Of course.
Give me the over and under on that story.
Right. Yeah, right.
What did you learn most about Tommy Green with snook?
Where not to go, because he would always lie to me. He'd be like, "We're catching him here," and I'd go there, and they wouldn't be there, and then he'd be like, "Yep, got you again." No, but man, he had a real East Coast style of snook fishing. Piers, inlets, bridges, and I kind of did that.
Chasing
a lot.
tides.
Yeah, I kind of did that a lot growing up. Because piers, inlets, and bridges are very accessible to you when you're younger without a boat and stuff. So
would you night fish for these snook, like up in Jupiter and Juneau and stuff?
I was never as big a night guy, but I'd daytime fish, like spillways and inlets or anywhere, canals.
We did a podcast with Kelly Gallup in the West, up in Montana this last fall. And he said something very interesting. He said, during the day, the trout don't want to hang out on a treadmill. They don't want to hang out in the current.
Right.
They want to hang out on the couch, the soft water, the frog water. But I would think that would be very similar to a snook and a tarpon. And a tarpon, they don't feed during the day, but we can entice that bite with a fly.
Yeah.
But I would think with snook too, I think with as cagey as they are, it would be almost impossible to catch a big fish during the day.
You just got to get them when
even
they're vulnerable.
with bait, right?
No, you just got to get them when they're vulnerable. I mean,
what makes them vulnerable?
Not being city fish. You get them in the Everglades. That helps a lot. City fish like urban fish. Just early in the morning, late at night, or late in the evening is always a time of
Mm-hmm.
day. The light helps them. Makes them a little stupid. Having the right live bait, just having them not be aware of you.
So, but I'm thinking here 2 different locations for your snook. The Everglades snook, you can target them during the day.
Yeah.
But I would think that really big snook, like near the East Coast, under these big bridges and intercoastal waterways, I would think those big fish would be almost impossible to catch during the day.
Yeah, bridge fish are different. That's a night deal, but a lot of times you fish inlets in the day, or I don't do that anymore, but I love to walk the beach in the summer for big snook. For me, that's dead middle of the day with the sun out. That's the best way to catch a really big snook on fly these days. Mm-hmm. I mean, every day you have the chance of catching a over 40-inch snook doing that.
But those are spawning fish.
Yeah, fish running the beaches during spawning time.
Mm-hmm. So that's when you can find that fish that's let his guard down.
Yeah, or at a spillway because the water's coming out turbulent and there's bait coming out, so they're switched on. I think it's all about fishing around switched on fish. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your biggest snook?
I measured one and the math came out to around 38 pounds one time from Boynton Spillway.
Wow.
I have a picture of it. I'll send you guys a picture in a little bit.
How did you catch that?
I was with my dad. It was Father's Day. We were running the beach. We got pilchards in Boca Inlet, and we ran the beach looking for tarpon north.
So it was what time? The fall, you say?
It's Father's Day, so it would have been August. or no, what's June?
Yeah.
Sorry, June.
Yeah, June.
Yeah. So June. So we were running the beach, looking for tarpon in the morning. We didn't plan on snook fishing. We got our bait in Boca, running north. We caught a big tarpon off Delray Beach, and it started getting thunderstormy. So we came into Boynton Inlet, and we're coming back south down the intercoastal to the ramp. We noticed the spillway was open, and we still had pilchards. So we pulled in there and started throwing pilchards up in the floodgate, and it was game on. It was one of the best big snook bites I've ever had.
Wow.
And one of the ones we got, it was 46 inches long, and I forget the girth, but it came out to
Good Lord.
high 30s.
Why was that spillway open? Was there a lot of rain?
Yeah, summertime rains, June.
So they had dumped some water, right? Mm-hmm. So when you were fishing for the tarpon on the beach, I go back to you said that magic word tarpon.
Yeah, tarpon.
In June. How would you catch those fish with pilchards?
Kind of like you used to do,
Like
maybe.
kind of like fly fishing, but you're throwing a spinning rod with a pilchard.
Yeah, like you might have seen in Jupiter, same thing, just the fish weren't up in Jupiter yet. We used to do that up there with John and Glorio and Butch, maybe, or whoever you
Yeah,
fished
I
with.
did that with John.
So same thing, just see the big balls of fish, get up in front of them, and we didn't chum them with chummer baits, but we just threw pilchards in there, full size on a spinning rod.
Yeah, because Butch used to get a tube thing and Glorio too, and throw a bunch of pilchards out there, and all of a sudden these tarpon are just spinning, big silver flashes and everything. And then you throw a big white fly in there, and you get one.
Yeah, I remember I used to work for Mark Sosin for a long time. We did some shows with Butch and Charlie Stuve and Dickie Dickinson up there, and we did a lot of that. So that was pretty cool, getting to see how that goes, learning from those guys. Did
the offshore world ever appeal to you?
Yeah, I did a bunch of that growing up. We'd always take our skiffs out there and even John boats sometimes. Don't tell my dad. But, get bait in Boca Inlet and run out there and catch kingfish and tunas on the edge and catch sailfish now and then, bottom fish. I've done a bunch of that, but not professionally or not recently.
But you gravitated towards the shallow water game.
Yeah, as time went on and got my own truck and my own boat and spread my wings and met buddies doing the same thing. We all went down to Flamingo a lot. Or Biscayne or Chokoloskee, and learned as much as we could about that.
Did you have a hard time sleeping at night when you were younger?
I mean, I still get up and so excited to go fishing every day. Some people get over it and get sick of it. I never seem to. And I could fish all tarpon season, and I'm off for one day, and I'm ready to go fishing again.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same about building boats?
Yeah, I've always been a really creative person, so it's a huge creative outlet. Like experimenting with hull shapes and dimensions and materials, and there's an infinite, number of variables there.
Well, you're lucky because you have two great passions in your life.
Yeah,
that can that intrigue you fully.
You said you're a creative guy. Eric Herstead said that no one knows this, but you were a great painter.
Oh yeah, I used to sketch or paint, do art, Yeah, I used to do that a lot. I just totally one day just lost interest in it for no good reason, and but I've still got all that stuff at the house.
Eric said he went over your house and he saw all these paintings and he's like, "Brian, who painted this? This is really good."
Yeah.
And you go, "Me."
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah, Eric's the best. He's cool.
Let's talk about Mark Sosin. You said you were a camera boat and an underwater camera guy for him, right?
Yeah, and I shot the main A camera for a while too, where I would just stay on Mark no matter what happened, and the other guy got all the other stuff with the B camera. My job was to have the shoot Mark, and but I started like one time Mark needed a camera boat driver for a local shoot, and Tommy Green gave my name, so I show up in the morning at Crandon Marina, not really knowing what's going on, and they're taking out the Secretary of the Interior, Bruce Babbitt at the time, with Kenny Colette to get a quick shot of catching a bonefish in the national park. So I was thrown right into the fire there, into the mix. And that was one of the coolest days of my life. I got, Kenny was larger than life, and the whole deal, Secret Service boat chasing us and stuff. And, I learned a few good bonefish spots that day, which got me in trouble later on.
Yeah, that's a great way to steal some spots. There's going to be a camera boat operator for Kenny Colette and Mark Sosin.
Yeah, like about a month later, I was chumming in this exact spot where Kenny took me in. I see him coming down the channel, and I was like, oh, this isn't going to be good. But we had a bonefish on at the time, so we didn't move. And Kenny pulls right up. He goes, "Is that bleeping Brian?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Kenny, it's me." And he's like, "You know what? I'd be mad, but I'm impressed. That's exactly where I'd put my push pole." He's like, "You know what? Catch that fish and just go down the channel 100 yards. It works down there too."
No F-bombs?
There was a couple, but I was...
Kenny used to be a big yeller, and I asked him back at the dock when everybody was talking about Kenny and getting too close to Kenny, And I'd say, Kenny, what's too close when you're out there? He said, if I could see you, you're too close.
Yeah. Well, Kenny, you know, Kenny's Kenny, but he was a great guy, you know, rest his soul. Had a lot of fun.
We had a lot of fun together. We did a lot of great battles together in the Gold Cup when he was fishing with Azo.
I bet.
He'd go out of the Cape and catch one fish. It would be 125.
Yeah.
And I remember one year I lost to him. I lost the Gold Cup one year by 5 points. That's 8 ounces.
Right. That's not much.
And
that's one click on the strap.
Yeah. I was, I caught like an 80 something. I figured it was around 80 and another release. And I'm thinking that's about 1,250 points or whatever. I'm motoring into the Lorelei, and Bob Brandon is standing there.
Right.
He says, "You catch any?" I said, "Yeah, I got one around 80 and a release." So I'm figuring about 1,200 or whatever. And I said, "What can he catch?" Because he and I were like separated by 10 pounds that morning. He said he got a 125.
Ooh,
and then my gut just went into knots, and I knew it was going to be close, and they beat us by 8 ounces. Ooh. But Kenny was always in the money. He was a great guy. Rest in peace, Kenny.
Yeah,
he was a good dude. So, did you ever fish with Kenny yourself?
No, not just for fun, but we probably did 6 or 7 shows over time with him. So we got to see a lot of stuff, all Biscayne-based stuff. But
did he befriend you? Did he help you and mentor you in any way?
Yeah, Kenny was great. We talked on the phone a little bit, but I wasn't guiding at the time. I was just still working for Mark, sometimes full-time, sometimes part-time. I had a pressure cleaning business as well on the side, and so that kept me busy. But yeah, Kenny was great. I still, when I fish the bay, I kind of like feel how Kenny used to go about the thing, and, like that's still in me when I fish the bay. I kind of fish like that a little bit. Yeah.
What about Mark Sosin?
Mark was awesome. He was the best guy. He was almost like a second dad. Mark's really cool. He was. Mark, what can I say? I was really young and naive, and everything we were doing was like larger than life.
Especially with Mark.
Yeah, fishing. And at that point, the show was on national television, so it was a big deal that TNN, the Saturday morning outdoor block. So that was in ESPN too.
Who did you learn the most from in your guiding career?
Man, just probably just coming up fishing with some of my good buddies. We were just fish heads, and we fished like crazy all the time. And I fished with a lot of guides as friends, 'cause I knew a bunch before I started guiding. And they used to call me the guide's guide. Like if they wanted to go fishing, they'd call me. We'd go pull around. But you learn a lot like that. And who else? Yeah, being on shoots with seeing how all these other guys operated, and not just spots, but like how they operate, and how they did stuff and techniques, and that taught me a ton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's go back to your personal life here for a second. You said you had a younger brother that passed.
I did.
Yeah. Tell me about your family life. And your mom was a nurse, and your dad, worked in sales.
Yeah. No, I had a great childhood. Yeah. No, lots of love, no traumas. Yeah. So I had a brother. When he was 15, he was shot and killed accidentally. I was 18 at the time, and that's tough.
Yeah. What was that? How'd that go down? Who owned the gun, and where were they?
It was a gun they got from some girl's mom or something. But so anyways, yeah, it was after youth group one night, and I was supposed to
What's
take
youth
him,
group?
Like church youth group.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were at my girlfriend's house at the time, and we just heard a shot outside, and it had gone off by accident.
Who was with your brother?
Just his friend that the accident happened with.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Were you really close with him?
Yeah, for sure. You guys are going to try to make me cry.
So sad. So sad. Did he like to fish also?
He did. We would do the same stuff, skateboard, fish, whatever it was. Yeah.
Who's your best friend?
What?
Who's your best friend now?
Nowadays?
Yeah.
Let me think. Eric Ersted's a great friend of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pete Frezza, different guys. Andy Thompson.
Right. That's a great group of guys, man.
Yeah.
Homestead boys.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about, you're like Eric, you have a very positive mentality with the state of the fishery.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, you fish everywhere, Chokoloskee, Middle Keys, Lower Keys, you go bass fishing the Everglades, you do everything. Mm-hmm. How's the state of the fishery?
I think we have fabulous fishing here. I know there's a lot of, doom and gloom, and, you know, people always saying the good old days were like this, and there's things that definitely aren't any good anymore, but our fishing is still so good. Like we were always going out there and catching lots and lots of snook, lots of bass. There's lots of tarpon around still, a baby tarpon at times. Our bone fishing's rebounding. Like yesterday I was on the Gulf Coast and saw more permit on the west coast of Florida than the Lower Keys guys seen in 10 years. There's lots of fish around.
Wow.
Yeah.
So usually when you see bad fishing, does that kind of, in a guide's perspective, certain locations get bad and other locations get better?
Well, I like to be versatile, and that helps me. And I like to work with the weather for the day. Like if it's going to be cloudy and windy, blowing 20 out of the east or northeast, that's a fabulous snook and bass day to go blind cast. But like if you lived in the Lower Keys, maybe you'd be out of business. But I just try to work with the weather. And if it's a pretty day, we'll go fly fishing, sight fishing. If it's blowing west, we'll go to Biscayne Bay. Just be able to jump around and work with the weather. That's like Eric does a lot of the same thing. Like when we plan the day, it's more about the right move to make on that weather. That sets you up for success. You know?
Well, that's, yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. You know, fishing up in the areas where you do, we have flamingo and all that country available to you.
Especially we have such good blind casting options, and that's not always available, but the Everglades are just a wealth of blind casting. So unless it's a named storm, you can pretty much go fishing and have success.
Because the Lower Keys, they don't really have the snook and red fishing down there like you guys have.
No, and if they did, it's not a blind casting fishery. I mean, although the Everglades have a world of sight fishing, I'm just saying if there's bad weather, you've got options. And sometimes you catch more fish on those bad weather days because the water blows out and gets low and the snook come out of the bushes and things start to move around. And those days when it's blowing 25 out of the northeast, I get real excited, like for 3 days in a row, because the water gets super low and we're just going to hammer the snook and bass.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why is snook your favorite fish?
They just always have. They're a lot of people's favorite fish growing up in South Florida, but they're cool. They live in so many areas. They can live offshore. They can live on a beach. They can live in a backcountry puddle. They live everywhere in between. They're kind of always accessible and always, they play real honest. They're not always easy to catch, but they play real fair. And they're exciting. They live in a lot of cool spots. Like you can really get into the backcountry and explore. So
do you get more excited when a client comes on your boat and wants to pursue big snook versus tarpon fish?
Yeah, I mean, I love tarpon fishing, and we do it for work a lot for months and months, and it's awesome and exciting. But if I quit guiding, I probably wouldn't fish for big tarpon ever again. But I would definitely go snook and bass fishing, for sure.
Is that because it's so reliable? Possibly?
Yeah, I just like the rhythm of it all. And big tarpon are awesome, like for sure. Big tarpon are great. We need them. They're best game fish out there. But it's just something about the rhythm of snook fishing. I like it. Mm-hmm. Always have.
We've got some great weather. It's February 11th.
Yeah.
And this whole last week or so, it's been calm and hot, And I've always felt like the tarpon fishing in February when it gets right is better than any of the May fishing.
Oh, it's the best of the year. Like the boat show on Valentine's Day every year, that's the best tarpon fishing. And we're like, right now we're sitting here, 3 tarpon heads, and it's very good today.
Well, yeah, what are you seeing out there this whole week?
Yeah, like right now the fish are kind of grouping up and aggregating. Lots of areas where they're free jumping in big, a mile of free jumpers, or there's fish all through the backcountry and the inside. And I haven't been in Florida Bay, but I'm sure they're all wandering around out there and right out back of the Keys. They're one fish that when they come in, they kind of come in and inundate everything like this time of year. So almost anywhere you've ever seen a tarpon, there's probably a tarpon today.
Right. You have a lot of resident fish, but this time of year, I feel like there's the massive biomass is starting to stage up, if you will. Right?
Yeah, they're real stagey right now, if that's the word for it. And then in a few more weeks, they're going to start to swim. So like you get into early March, all of a sudden you'll see them swimming, like to and from those aggregations. Like you'll get on an edge on the Gulf Coast or wherever, and you'll see swimmers. Like I checked yesterday, they weren't swimming yet between spots, but they were in spots. But pretty soon they'll start that swimming thing, and that just leads to the whole migration and the whole, how we fly fish them a lot.
I've talked to a couple people, and they said that Brian is a super fishy guy.
Yeah, well, very nice.
What does it mean to be super fishy? When someone says that word, super fishy, what does that mean?
Yeah, just be into your craft and pay attention and be versatile and, fish all types of tackle, like spinning rods, not a bad word. There's like, look at Richard Black. He's as good with a spin rod, and it's just as much of an art. Or a plug rod. All the different fish, all the different areas. Just pay attention to what you see, and hopefully you have a knack for it.
refine all your aspects of all the fish that you fish for.
Yeah, even live bait fishing, whatever it is, just whatever makes sense at the time, or it's all fun, you know.
Yeah.
Do you like throwing your cast net?
I like it in the summer. It's a good way to catch big snook. Like I'll do the summertime beach thing, like we were talking about, like chum snook, chum bonitas, you know, this, that, or sometimes I'll go back in the canals right here in Deerfield, Boca Raton, and chum pilchards, and there's unbelievable snook and tarpon fishing back there in the summer. You'd never know was there.
Really?
Yeah, you start chumming pilchards in select spots, and you can definitely catch a lot of snook and tarpon right here in the canals.
How big are your tarpon?
They're big size babies, maybe 20 pounds, you know? Yeah, something like that, give or take.
And your snook are
all sizes, as big as they
ones.
get to little ones. You know, a lot of medium sized ones around here, but there's quite an urban fishery, and I know it around here just from growing up in Deerfield. So I still come back to do it now and then.
So if you're not fishing a bridge or like a seawall, are you looking for little indentations in the intercoastal? I mean, does a deeper spot hold fish more so than
a lot of like confluences where like rivers come out to intercoastals around here or something? There's not a million spots, but it's pretty good. Or the whole Hillsborough Canal system's got areas, you know, some are marinas, some are big yachts, whatever it is. You start throwing pilchards around and things are living under those yachts, you know.
Oh, interesting.
Like
I would think
much
it being an urban fisherman would be exciting, where the trunk of your car or your truck is filled with all kinds of stuff.
Oh, look at Steve Kantner
Yeah,
for the longest time.
I mean,
he was a beach guy and a bridge guy, Steve. But I'm thinking, you know, like the guys that chase snook from bridge to bridge and the tides and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Without a boat. You know, you got to salute those guys, because those are the guys that are really, you know, fishy too. I think when you say, you know, what does it mean to be fishy? It means that you really understand where the fish you're targeting, what they like to do, and you know when and where to intercept them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I asked Steve Huff one time, what does it mean to be fishy? What does it mean to think like a fish?
Right.
Well, you don't think like a fish. You understand what they love, and you become a sniper for that animal.
You got to turn on your instincts, you know, be an Indian, just kind of, you know, there's a lot of that. So don't throw the drone up all the time, look around, use your instincts.
Yeah. It's like when we're elk hunting, you know, you hunt the wind as much as you hunt the tide as a fisherman.
Right. Yeah.
And let me ask you this: how well and how focused are you on understanding the movement of your fish? Like, I know a lot of deer hunters. What do you call that? When you
pattern?
You pattern the deer. And do you pattern your fish?
Yeah,
a lot.
You try to
like bonefish. You would think bonefish would cover a lot of areas, but do you find an area where the bonefish are on a certain tide and this is the same fish every day?
Bonefish are very much on a schedule, like clockwork, and they'll mix it up a little bit. They're one of the more predictable fish, I feel like. You know, you can almost set your watch by their movement around Biscayne Bay or something. You know, they go here, go there, go here, and then it's very formulaic. You know, I like to sometimes fish not so formulaic, and you know. Some of the Everglades stuff, it's so 360 and so many options and places and fish. And I think I got off on a tangent there, but anyways, you know, one fish you can pattern is bass. Like one day they'll be on points, one day they'll be this or eating that or this color. You know, you can always pattern whatever fish it is. Or the tarpon, if they're swimming high, swimming low, rolling. It looks calm, but they're not laid up. Why aren't they laying up? They should be. Or, you know, it's a lot of stuff's hard to figure out. You're not a tarpon, so you don't quite know. But,
what's the hardest part about being a professional guide?
Man, you got to love it. It's a ton of work and a lot of hours. You got to love it or you're going to hate it. You know, you got to kind of be sick for it a little bit. But just, you know, in South Florida, we're on the trailer a lot, so the driving, you know, that's probably
I've always found that, you know, the drive back from Flamingo up to Boca, and you're in Hollywood, so that's still, you've got a lot of heavy traffic to, you know, to negotiate. How do you find your patience to deal with that on a daily basis? I mean, I was going through a road rage yesterday, and I don't live on the road. It's, you know, it's just like, God, it's just insane.
Yeah, we just, you know, fish around traffic best we can. We start real early and a lot of times wrap it up early. And if we miss the traffic window, we're just going to fish real late. It's just, you just don't leave Flamingo at 4:00, you know, you got to get out of there by 2:30 or something. But we start at 6 or 6:30, so your 8 hours are in and it all works. You have to fish at a sustainable pace or it doesn't work. You can't be in the boat for 12 hours and drive an hour and a half in each end and everything. And it just have time for emails and fix stuff and make
you
food
get
and
home.
work out and all the stuff. It just doesn't work. So you got to limit the boat to a reasonable amount of hours.
We were somewhere in the backcountry behind Flamingo, and it was like 2:00 one day, 2:30. And I told Nikki, as the two of us fishing, I said, Nikki, it's time. We got time to go.
Yeah.
And he looks at me and goes, I just wish just one day we could fish a whole day. Right?
Yeah.
And I go, Nikki, if we get to the ramp at 4:00 or 5,
Yeah.
we have a 3-hour drive home, and you're going to be sleeping the whole way.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. Brian is talking about someone who goes down there every day,
and
we go down there a handful of days every winter. So I want to fish a long day.
Yeah.
I will endure the traffic to fish a long day.
Okay, Nikki, you can drive home.
Right. Yeah.
But
You can sleep now.
But no, traffic scares my dad more than anybody. Even
just- I'm tired.
if the tarpon fishing is just insane,
Yeah.
he's looking at his clock all day long, waiting for 2:00.
We
to
left
go.
at 2 a.m. I just know I'm going to be falling. I'm an old guy. I'm going to be falling asleep driving home.
Yeah, don't find anything really good at 2:00.
And I look over at Nick, and he's got his mouth wide open, with it looking at the fucking back of his eyeballs. Have you ever heard of the boat wiggle?
Nope.
So Carl Ball talks about the boat wiggle, because when it's like driving home on I-95,
Oh, the
it's
boat wiggle,
just jammed tight. So you have to put on the signal. Nobody slows down. You can't get over. You're towing a boat.
Oh, yeah.
So then you put on the signal and fake like you're going to go over anyway. So you just veer over, and they slam on their brakes.
Yeah.
And then they open up the gap so you can get over. And Carl always called that the boat wiggle.
Yeah, that's a great move.
Do you use that a
Oh,
lot?
yeah, you got to use the boat wiggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the tournaments? What got you into the tarpon tournaments?
I've never been a real, crazy tournament angler. I did the Gold Cup for a while with Dave Preston. That was a ton of fun for about 5 years. It was before he fished at Lewis and had his recent success, and he's had a great run. He came to me very green at tarpon fishing and on the ocean and everything else. And so kind of, came up doing that a lot together, and we taught each other a bunch of stuff about it. And by the time we were done fishing, after 5 years, he was as good on the ocean as anyone I've ever seen. And when we started, he had never made a cast that won on the ocean. And
so you mentored him and got him to be the angler that he eventually became.
I don't want to take all the credit, but we worked a lot, and I taught him a lot, I feel. And even with fighting fish at first, he'd fight him for 4 hours, and we'd have to break him off to get in on time. And we got to where he was catching them in 20 minutes, a half an hour. And from one end to the other of tarpon fishing, like, he is a shot maker. Like, he will make every shot. Like, I know you guys do and stuff, but he's very good at feeding them all. He's got that gift of feeding them. He's got a good feel for it. He's extremely good. And no wonder he's having a lot of success. But I've never seen anybody learn as fast as he did, coming from like very green to like getting very good in a short amount of time. Like, you didn't have to show him too many things or, for too long, and he would pick it up real fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what makes him so great? It's just he maximizes and takes advantage of every shot.
Yeah, I think in the tournaments, like, you have to make 100 out. You have to make almost 100% of your shots, and making the shots not just throwing it on the right spot. You got to work the fly right, read the fish right. You know how it is. You got to. If you only make half your shots, you only got that many shots for the day. You didn't get. You know what I mean? So it's like it didn't happen.
Right.
So it's a numbers game for those tournaments. You got to get a lot of shots, hook a lot of fish, land as many as you can, and
yeah. Did you like fishing tournaments?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, especially if you're doing good and the weather's good. I don't like it when the weather's bad, like nobody does. I never fished the Holly a lot, and that's the bad weather week, but we always had pretty good weather in the Gold Cup. And for the years we were fishing it, there was still a lot of fish around in June then, and, it comes and goes, how the patterns do, but June is still fishing really good then. And, we always landed about 5th or 7th place somehow. That was our groove. One year we really bombed, but we, we always...
You had good consistency.
Yeah.
But you don't fish them anymore.
We fish the backcountry fly, and we fish a little for fun, and we talking about Pompano fishing because he lives in Stewart. But no, he's a great guy. We're still good buddies. He might buy a boat.
Have you ever thought about finding somebody else to actually win that Gold Cup or some of the big tournaments?
I'm not real driven to do that, honestly. But if I had a great angler that I believed in, like 100%, then I would do it. Because
I don't feel that you're kind of driven to be a tournament guy because you like to be away from people. You like to hide. You like to go into the no motor zone. Was it hard for you all of a sudden to be surrounded by all these boats and having to leave at the dock at 6 a.m. and run as fast as you can and fish till 3 and run home?
Yeah, we'd run as fast as that 70 would take us. But we were the slowest boat in the fleet for sure. But no, I mean, I would fish. Then I was staying in Islamorada for 2 months. Eric Herstead and I would run a house, so I was fishing around all those boats and all that all the time, anyways. So it wasn't much different, but the hours were longer. But I like the intensity you fish out in a tournament because you have a very heightened state of awareness and intensity, and I kind of like that. It's fun to fish at that higher level. You're not so, on a normal day, you're trying hard and you're working hard, but it's a different level in a tournament,
right?
Of your intensity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
See, I can see that. You have to be able to be. You have to have dexterity.
Yeah,
In that you can figure out how to catch those fish, and you're okay with tournaments. I mean, I loved them, but when all of a sudden that switch flipped, I there's no way I could fish a tournament. I just got burned out.
Right.
Tell us about that time a crocodile almost flipped your boat with Julian.
Yeah, so Julian Robertson and I built a one-off, no motor zone skiff maybe 20 or 25 years ago. And it was a plywood skiff, a Kumi plywood and epoxy, very light plywood boat. And we were pulling in the no motor zone in Flamingo, and we saw a crocodile slide off the bank up ahead. We didn't really think much about it. And I was kind of in travel mode, and I was really pushing hard with the push pole. And he was laying in a foot of water, and we didn't see him. And we T-boned him and wedged him to the bottom, like hit him going pretty fast. And he freaked out, and he snapped around and bit the boat, grabbed the rub rail and the hull. He put a few holes in the hull and ripped the rub rail down and shook for a minute. And he kind of stood up off the bottom, and the whole boat lifted and then set to the side. And Julian fell in the water on his tail, and then his feet get stuck in the mud. And he's hollering, and I'm just trying to take in the whole situation. And he finally gets out of the mud and jumps in with me, and he tries to get on the pulling tower with me. And then I'm trying to back up, and the crocodile's hissing with his mouth open. And, so anyways, we just pulled over an island and inspected everything, made sure we weren't going to sink. And after that, we went and fished the rest of the day, but we're a little on edge.
Was there what kind of boat damage was there? You lost the...
Yeah, there was 3 or 4 teeth marks through the plywood hull, punctures, and then the rub rail was ripped down for 18 inches, and the deck was a little messed up. But
do you still have that boat?
No, somebody in the lower keys had it. Luke something or another. Last I knew. Yeah, it was cool though. It was a 19-foot long boat with a very narrow, like 40-inch bottom, and it was just like a giant glorified canoe skiff. And
wow,
we could run it with a 15 horse and all that stuff for back there. Take the motor off, take the tower off, take the motor off. And
how would you get from Flamingo to the no motor zone?
just run the boat down there. Yeah.
Just take the motor off.
You go through the entrance and where you have to take the motor off by law and pull the rest of the day. But it's typical to pull 5 or 6 or 7 miles in there today.
Can you use a trolling motor in there? The no motor zone?
Not in those no motor zones I'm talking about, but there's Poland trolls where you can. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of just strictly no motor zones too, where you can't.
Right. Now, when you're pulling the strict no motor zone, will you ever see anybody back there?
Not much, like very, very rarely, almost never. And it seems like I used to see more people back there, but people have gotten away from it for some reason, which is fine with me. But yeah, very rarely.
Now, does the water level, does that affect the fishery back there tremendously?
Yeah.
So you're always looking at the water level?
Yeah, for sure. If you want to sight fish, like in the spring and winter, usually the water's down enough to sight fish. You can't have a big west wind or something that'll fill up. But you want, a low water helps for the sight fishing. But in the summer, if you go in there when the water's up, the fish are all still back in there, and you just fish a little more around current and things like that, and they'll be there.
How many fish are you going to catch back there on a good day?
Man, it's the best fishing in the park for snook. Last summer we blind casted and caught 100, and then left at 100. I had a guy, Frank DeLucas, and his son, and we were just blind casting, spinning rods, and when we got to 100, we left. But it's not always like that. But you can sight fish 20 or 30 fish easy in a day, or 40.
Wow.
And there's redfish mixed in too.
I would want to go there every day.
Yeah. No, it's just a lot of work, and it's not for everybody. But yeah, like if you do everything every day, it
gets monotonous. Yeah.
But
so there's a window on when the water gets so low where you can sight fish them all.
Yeah, usually Thanksgiving when it starts raining in June. that half the year.
Man, I'd love that. I've never done that.
I know.
Yeah, I'll take you guys. You know how to pull too, right? So
I know how
That's the
to
most
pull.
important question.
yeah.
I know how to pull.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't you spend some time in Louisiana fishing?
Yeah, since 2008, I've gone out there for about 2 months a year, October, November, in the fall. I was just really intrigued by the area and the fishery, and I love to explore. That's kind of the fun of everything, is exploring it for the first time, and it's a good supplemental month or two in the slower half of the year, so
Right.
it helps for work too. So been going out there since 2008. It's still fabulous, but they are beating that place to death with.
How many skiffs are over there? I know a lot of the Keys guides go over, or a few, not a lot, but it's amazing, the fishery over there. I mean, really big bull drum,
Yeah. No, it's great. It's real gluttonous. Like, everything's big and hungry, and you break rods and catch big stuff, and it's very visual. But what I mean by beating it to death is like the recreational guys and the bay boat guys are killing too many limits for too long, and the pogie netters offshore netting the bull redfish as they net the menhaden, the pogies. So, and there's habitat loss, and there's the oil industry cutting all the canals, and the cypress logging back in the day, and all the commercial fishing. Like, if that place is a national park back in the day, it'd be unbelievable. And it still is. It's probably at whatever percent of original biomass, which it isn't probably a lot, but it's still unbelievable. But I couldn't imagine seeing that place at 100% biomass or close to it.
Are they trying to cut back on the fish take limits?
Yeah, they just finally did something. They dropped it by one fish, and they messed with some other laws, but it's not enough. The biologists recommended stricter changes, but they shot them down. It's hard to get the killing out of that culture. It's just the way it is there.
Right.
Now, I get it, but that's the way it's always been. But
So commercial fishing, they're targeting the big redfish also?
well, when they net the menhaden, it's bycatch.
It's a bycatch, yeah.
And now they're allowed so many pounds of redfish a day or a week or whatever quota now. So that just, they keep them instead of throwing them back where they might live. They keep some of them. So it's a problem because that's the big breeders, They're all living in those menhaden, and they're netting those things like crazy. And it's a problem because the Gulf needs those menhaden. It's the Gulf menhaden, and they fished them out of Texas and in the Northeast, and now the pogie boats from there in Venice, Louisiana. So it's just exponential the amount it takes. So they got to get a handle on that.
Yeah, you take the bait away from all these fish. They struggle.
But there's so much life in that water. You pull through, and shrimp are shooting away from the boat, and the redfish is swimming down the bank, and shrimp are jumping out of his way, and there's mullet everywhere and blue crabs. You can't look at water there without looking at life, so that's pretty cool.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
We were there that one time, Nikki and I, got weathered out for about 3 days, and then we had about 4 good days, and we were fishing with Andy Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
You're catching these 20 to 40 pound redfish all day long. Yeah. It's like ridiculous.
They're just like tarpon. They swim edges, they lay up. It's totally tarpon fishing, but they're not jumping. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I feel like they live in basins and, swim beaches. They do all the same stuff.
How hard was it to learn that fishery? Did you lose any lower units?
Oh, you know what? I've had 2 insurance claims from out there. One time running down the Mississippi River, we hit a pipe in the water that was barely showing, and it punched a big hole in the bottom of the boat. And I noticed it was steering funny and getting heavy, and I looked down, and the cockpit's getting water in it. So
oh no!
I just parked over a sandbar like 1.5 feet deep, and the boat settled in to the bottom. And, we didn't sink, but we were sunk basically. We had to have Cito come out and put a sump pump in there and shoot all the water out, and then we ran in with the pump running. Then I got it on the trailer, and I put a little temporary fiberglass patch, and we went fishing the next day, the whole season with that temporary patch. But and then another time I hit some old camp rubble and sheared the lower unit right off because there's all the camp debris, like old homes out there and the hurricanes knock them down. I hit some camp rubble, basically an old home in the water.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Both times in the morning, both times running into the sun, and I couldn't see, in the water, because usually I stand up and run and look for stuff because you go by stuff all the time out there and you're like, whoa, I got to mark that. I got to tell my buddies because there's horrible stuff to hit everywhere out there. You're lucky every day you don't sink the boat, really. But
I'd be so afraid to run.
It's got to be so scary.
I can drive a car 200 miles an hour. I've got, I don't care. Motorcycles 180. I don't care. In a boat, I care.
Just run around trimmed up like an airboat and wear your kill switch. And the faster you go, the shallower you go. So you're kind of better off.
The faster you go, the better off.
Yeah.
The better off you're going to be.
If you hit something, you don't want to limp away from it. You want to try to get over it.
But how did you learn that area? Were you looking at a lot of maps and just trial and error?
Yeah, just looking at the maps. But the place is it's so fishy that if you just use half a brain, you can stumble across them pretty good and start putting things together. You know, because right away we had great success. Like the first day I ever fished Louisiana at a Delacroix, caught 67 redfish, sight fishing by myself, some of it fly fishing with a trolling motor. First day ever being in the States. So like, they're all smaller fish in the summer, but still like you can have great success there.
Wow.
Yeah. Did you go over there with any other guides and share a house? To share the expenses.
Yeah, over time we always have roommates for that. It's the group of guys has morphed over time. It used to be more David Mangum and Jason Stacy and Jurgens and that shallow expeditions crew, but Andy Thompson or Bill Faulkner. Now recently I'm staying with Jack Foley or Bill Faulkner. It's always morphing, or Travis Huckabee. Yeah. But yes, you got to share expenses.
It's kind of, I think it would be really cool to go there because you have this displacement of guides from the lower part of Florida up in the Panhandle area, the lower Keys guides, the mid Keys guys, the Homestead guys. Yeah. All of a sudden, they're all fishing over there in the winter. It's like, this is where you need to be. It's almost like in the old days of tarpon fishing. Everybody was in Homosassa.
Oh, yeah.
So now in the fall, everybody's in Louisiana.
I've actually said that. I'm like, this is our Homosassa. Like, I've said that to the guys. Like, we're here at the time it's happening. Like, this is our Homosassa. It's cool. A bunch of married guys all being bachelors for 2 months, and, it's kind of a good time.
You don't drink anything over there, do you?
I don't drink, but, a lot of my roommates really don't, but there's drinking going on for sure. Yeah. No, it's just a bunch of guys working hard. And
yeah.
What about the local redfish guides? Are you guys frowned upon?
Everybody's pretty cool now. At first, when the skiff scene came on real strong, when I first started going out there, the bay boat guys really didn't like us because they, were intruding on their turf, and I get that, and they didn't know how it was going to go. And one of the guys at the gas station pulls up to me and he goes, "Hey, nice boat." He goes, "What's that worth?" I'm like, "40,000." He goes, "Well, what's it worth burnt?" I was like, "Ooh." So I just,
are you insinuating something?
Yeah. So, and we were staying right off the highway, and we'd hear people go by honking their horn, all aggressive all the time, but that quieted down after a couple of years.
But you guys are fishing different water than the bay boat guys. You're up there skinnier water where those guys can't go. They just didn't want you around, right?
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's very, it's a small town, and that's all they got, and they're protective, and I totally get it. And but I think us bringing people there and bringing the awareness to the fishery made them way busier,
right?
And they even fish for bull reds now sometimes, a lot. So
right.
So they
everybody benefits.
Yeah, everybody benefits.
Yeah.
I've asked this question to the last number of guests, and I hate to be redundant, but I like this question. What's your weakest link as a guide?
I would say East Coast Atlantic permit, because I just never got into that as much. I mean, we always throw at them while we're bone fishing or tarpon fishing, but I've always seen it as something a little grindy for me. But if they get on the Gulf Coast and it's that day you're tarpon fishing and the permit are there, that's all I want to do. Like, tarpon doesn't exist anymore. So I would say East Coast Atlantic permit.
Are the West Coast permit easier to catch than the East Coast permit?
Oh God, yeah.
They're a little bit, just because the water's a little brinier.
Well, I think permit or permit, I think they'd be really hard to catch anywhere.
No, it's just like if a permit's on a wreck, they're going to be easier.
Well, I'm not talking
permit.
about permit on a wreck.
No, I know.
They'll be right in the tarpon lane. You'll see them. And usually over there, like, if it's the day they're around, like, they're around. Like, you might get 50 shots. Like, they are around. Like, they're everywhere. Like, the best day in the lower Keys, you might see 20 or something, but shots. But if it's that right day over there, like, you're going to get shots. So it usually leads to success. But it's hard to get that right day when they come around.
Right. But do they bite better on the West Coast?
They definitely bite better between the dirty water and the amount of shots and all that.
It's just like a tarpon in clear water versus the tarpon.
And they really like things
that
that jig a lot, like a heavy fly or a bonefish jig. Like, if it jigs a lot, that's what they're looking for. Like, no crab
you want
flies.
to bring the jack out of the permit.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. And that's how I feed them here, too, the little bit I permit fish. Like, when I jig fish here for bonefish and permit come by, it's almost a guarantee you're going to hook it on that jig. Like, they just love things that jig.
Interesting.
A lot.
Can you pattern these permit on the West Coast, or is it just random?
Man, it's random from what I see. Like, we saw a bunch yesterday. It was around the full moon. I don't know if that had something to do with it or not, like big spawning aggregations or pre-spawn, but what it takes is just very nice weather. Like, I think they come to the surface when it's calm, and they like to be around life. Like, wherever all the tarpon are, the permit are there too. Even if you're not seeing them that day, they're probably nearby. Or sometimes you see big schools running up and down the beach. All of a sudden you'll see them and start fishing for them.
Interesting. Yeah. I've never seen them over there like that.
I think a lot of the biomass of the permit might have shifted toward the West Coast. A lot of people are looking into that because they've dried up in some areas, but they seem to be extra amounts on the Gulf Coast, So
you were fun fishing over on the West Coast yesterday.
Yeah, I had a day off. I wanted to go look around. I've got some trips over there coming up.
So when you're looking around, are you looking for new spots, or are you just looking for see what's out there?
Yeah, a little of both, maybe exploring. But yesterday I was just trying to get tabs on the thing. I've been fishing more flamingo, and I wanted to go to the north end of the park and look. And
just see if there's fish around.
Yeah, bounced around, found all the tarpon, didn't really mess with them too much once I figured out they weren't going to do fly fishing things, and then caught a few reds on the shoreline before the tide got too high, and then it was like, let me look for these permit, and they were there. So big time they were there. Laid up with their fins out and all the cool stuff and swimming, and
cool.
They still weren't tough. I mean, easy. Like I was throwing jigs with splashless casts, like as good as I could do, and got 3 bites out of like maybe 40 shots, but it was cool though.
With the permit.
Yeah, like really nice big ones.
Did you catch them?
I didn't catch any of them.
You had 3 bites?
A mackerel bit the line one time, and 2 other ones came off somehow. But hook, 3 really nice ones.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, so just send us a pin when we get done with this.
Yeah, sure. But
that splashless cast is always a sexy cast.
Yeah, like Richard can pull that off good, or Eric Hurst. Those guys are great at that. But there's as much art in that
with
as
a
anything.
spinning rod, right?
Yeah, with the spinning rod. But also, you throw that tight loop, tailing loop fly cast. That's as good as it gets. If the few guys that can pull it off, if you can do that, that's your head and shoulders. Instead of coming in like a tomahawk every time and splatting the fly, if you just
Yeah, I can do that, but it's hard to be really accurate with it.
Julian's very good at it. He's got that down. He's
boom, the spinning rod. He scared me one time. We're motoring into the Lorelei, and he's standing there on the balcony with a spinning rod. He goes, "Here, catch!" And he fires this jig at me and stops it right here. And it bounces back. And he starts laughing. Ha ha ha! No, it's not that cool. It's not that funny. But no, he is so accurate. It's amazing.
He's so good. Like one time we were fishing on the ocean for tarpon, and he's casting dead in the wind, and he's back cast right at 12, so it's hard not to hook me. And he didn't even look back. He goes, "B, raise your arm." And I go like this, and he throws the loop right between my armpit. Never looked back at me. He just knew where I was. Tight loop right between my armpit in the push pole, and then right into the wind, like as far as it needed to go. I don't know how he did it. He goes, "Raise your arm." I don't know how, to this day, like how he knew, but he's very, very good.
Yeah.
And you look at him, and he's so tall and he's so goofy. You don't think he'd be such a great freaking fisherman. He's amazing.
He's so good.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's
cool. What are you? Where are you trying to push? I would say maybe your expertise. Where can you get better, and what are you trying to do differently after all these years?
And things are always changing. Like it's not a static environment. Like snake bite's not always going to fish like snake bite, or the Cape stable's not going. So you got to stay current. Like fish move around, habitats change, but just because something changes doesn't mean it's good or bad anymore. You just got to stay current and stay with what's happening. Like right now, we're getting way more water already in the backcountry from the Tamiami Trail bridges being raised. Like tons more fresh water coming back, and it's moving where the snook used to be. The bass are flourishing in the whole backcountry. There's bass in all the old snook spots.
Wow.
And way back and stuff. The snook almost don't like it as much, and they're moving. So you got to stay current.
So this is brackish water where you actually have a freshwater fish, the largemouth bass.
Yeah, I mean,
in your snook spots.
Yeah, like in behind, Hell's Bay and off Whitewater, there's tons of bass now, and way fresher. There's more garfish. The freshwater aquatics are flourishing. There's stuff growing in the cane patch and the rookery branch. It hasn't been there since the 50s or 60s. Like big long grass coming to the top.
Wow.
Like there's definitely already a lot more water coming just with those bridges. I know there's a lot more work to be done, but there's already tons more water coming, and the tarpon are attracted to that too. So we'll probably have better tarpon fishing, because of that.
But you said that's because they raised the bridges on the Tamiami Trail?
Yeah, miles of bridges letting more water get under. And as soon as they did that,
did they expand the width of the bridge?
They just raised it and took the old road bed out so that it's just 3 miles of water moving instead of just through culverts. So it helps the water really move. And they might be pumping more water towards that too a little bit. As they're
because that's the whole issue with Lake Okeechobee and send the water south.
Yeah.
And getting the water to filter down through the Everglades.
Yeah, but we've already seen like huge change, like with the aquatics and the fish and the backcountry. So we're already definitely getting a lot more water, but there's still lots to be done. But we are getting more water, so that's good.
No,
and we're actually growing grass in Florida Bay, and the whole state's losing grass. So we're growing grass. So there's areas that were 6 or 7 years ago when the grass died real bad from that salinity event. it's lush again. And there's sea trout everywhere, which is a good sign of health. So we're doing pretty good down in the park. We just gotta, keep after it and keep doing all the work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's your biggest concern with the fishery looking ahead in the next 10, 20, 30 years?
Sharks, of course, like you keep hearing. Shark depredation's bad. Just, 9 million people right now living next to the Everglades. That's always a battle. But
what's it like to fish the Everglades? Is it hard to find spots?
No, the Everglades, there's nothing but spots.
I wouldn't think it would be ever hard unless you're trying to fish on, well, let me just say, on the inside, there's 1,000 million spots, but on the ocean side for a swimming tarpon, are those spots getting taken and hard to find spots?
It's a little harder
when you're fishing the western edge out there?
Yeah, that's getting busier for sure. 100%. You got to be a little bit more strategic. You could go earlier, stay in a spot, get the right spot. You might have to have it all day instead of moving 3 times.
Interesting, because that's what we do on the East Coast in the Lower Keys. You get there early and stay because you can't get in and find a new spot.
Yeah, from Mike Marco down to East Cape now, there's a boat on all the points and all the beaches every few hundred yards. There's people fishing there now for sure, but it's still great. The fish bite good, and you know how it is there.
Yeah.
The
good guys will rise to the occasion.
And somehow you always get a spot. It seems like it's busy, but even fishing Ocean Reef and stuff, you get up in the morning, you go down there for the 50th day in a row, and you get a spot somehow, even though it seems like you wouldn't. There's always room to fit in. So, and there's a slack tide shuffle. You get a new spot like that.
Slack tide shuffle.
Yeah.
Just to bring it back to the your new boat company and boat design. What are some things that make a skiff ride really well and chop?
Well, there's
besides the obvious.
So the dead rise and the transom matters a lot. The boat has room to vertical travel softly. The flatter backs with the pointy bow, which is more like I'm making, or a lot of boats are like that with a flatter back with a entry in the front. You have to use the whole water line of the boat to break the waves. So you have to use your tabs more and rely on the bow to break the waves, because if the bow's in the air, it's going to hit the flat part and pound. So but the dead risey boats are a little different because the whole boat's cutting, so it's a little different. Those boats have more performance because they ride up and out of the water on the chines and in the pad, and they can get the speed and all that stuff for when you get above 50 horsepower.
One of the things that the Chittum boats have is that pad, that 8-inch pad on the back, which is like putting a plank or a water ski, up against the bottom of the boat, so it helps that lift. But you don't have that pad. It's
because it's a flatter bottom boat with a few degrees of dead rise. It's just it wouldn't make sense. It's already pretty like all a big pad basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I noticed on your boat that dead rise, it's super sharp in the front.
Yeah, in the front,
super sharp, and then back it's really shallow, or really flat.
It's to try to combine the best of both worlds, the rod versus draft. And I pulled my transom 10 inches narrower, which is unconventional than I think we talked about that, to just get a lot of glide.
It looks like a toy, your boat.
Yeah, it's 350 pounds on average, the build's coming out right now. Glassed over foam, nothing fancy, no carbon, just glassed over foam, like old school, but it's as light as you can get. If you go dense on the foam core and add thickness, you can go way lighter on the glass, and the glass is where all your weight is, your resin and glass. And a few fiberglass ribs, say under the deck, will stiffen the deck enough where you maybe don't need a whole nother layer of glass. So you saved a ton of weight, and it's just as stiff a product. So there's lots of ways.
Do you see down the road you may just gravitate to building boats? And not be a guide anymore?
If it was successful enough, and say I got hurt or something, but I do love to fish, and that's in me. So I'd like to keep fishing at one capacity or another. It'd be nice not to to have 2 good income streams, where I'm not always hustling trying to sell fishing days all the time, or worried about it so much. But
so you just sold your 4th boat, you said?
Yeah.
Do you have a target that you'd like to to reach at some point, like 20 boats a year or 30 or whatever?
I mean, at the scale we're at, we can make 2 a month, so that's more or less 24 a year. If the demand got more than that, we could scale up. But for right now, I'm subbing everything out, so I'm happy with that at the moment. If it got that, to be a bigger demand, we'll scale up, cross that bridge when it gets there. Try not to have investors and all the stuff right now. I'm trying to just do it myself, whether that's good or bad. The investor route always gets, complicated down the road.
Yeah. How do you manage your time? Because here you are building boats. You're a guide. Are you married with kids?
I'm married, no kids. yeah, you just have to be strict and just very strict with your time. Like at 2:00, I got to put the boat in the trailer and go home. Got to have time to like fix stuff, tie flies, all the homework. Do emails, try to work out, try to have a quality of life too.
Yeah. What kind of working out do you do?
Just like stretching and some weights and ride the mountain bike, because if you don't keep up with that, there's no way you can do this job a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. Try to have a good quality of life, but you have to be strict. And there are those days it's going off and you stay late, but for the most part, you got to be, just be strict with your time.
Mm-hmm.
So if people want to find out more info on the boats, you have a website? Grades?
We're getting the website made. We're waiting for this last boat with the finished top cap to come out to get the content for it. But right now, Gladescraft Skiffs. We're on Instagram or Facebook, or I'll send you specs and build sheets or whatever you want on there, information.
Cool.
There's lots of photos to find on there. It'll be gladescraft.com pretty soon when it comes out, the website.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Anything else that we missed that you would like to add?
Man, just God is good. That's it. Give him the glory.
Appreciate it, Brian.
Yeah, thank
You're
you
a good
for
man.
coming.
Thanks so much
Yeah.
for doing this.
Thank you, sir.
You got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What I saw is but that story. What I saw is just a ride.